Welcome back, and we're going to continue on the organelles inside of a cell. So here I've started to draw the information in green, and I've done that deliberately because these are some of the features that are very unique to plant cells. So these features you wouldn't find in an animal cell. So that's why I've kind of drawn them in green for plants and leaves and things like that. I don't know, I thought it made sense to me. Perhaps it'll help you remember where they come from. So the first feature here is we've got a cell wall. So you probably remember this green character here, this cell that I've drawn in earlier parts here. He's got a really thick sort of boundary. That's the cell wall that I've been trying to illustrate. It's what gives the cell a very rigid frame, shape and gives it some strength. But it still has the ability to let nutrients flow in and waste to flow out, just in the same way that a cell membrane can let those things in and out. But don't forget that underneath that cell wall, there is also a cell membrane. All cells, I believe, have a cell membrane. Next thing we got is chloroplast. A chloroplast, I've kind of drawn this as eyebrows here and a little bit here. You'll find lots of little ovals, perhaps around the boundary, so the edges of the plant cell in a lot of diagrams. Those, and they're usually drawn in green because they are green. That's what gives leaves their very intense green color. And a chloroplast, its job is they're full of chlorophyll, which is a molecule that converts sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide from the air into food. In fact, it turns into a kind of sugar that the plant can use. Because if you think about it, a plant can't really get up and walk. And if it can't get up and walk anywhere or move, then it can't really go and find something to eat and therefore get its food that way. So it has to get energy from somewhere. And what it does is it takes that energy, it basically makes the energy, or makes the food for itself, which it can then eat to turn into energy. So that's the defining feature of a plant cell. So they usually have chloroplasts. However, I have been made aware that not all plant cells have chloroplasts, depending on what part of the plant you're looking at. So I would make a guess that if chloroplasts are green, and that therefore makes leaves very green, maybe the trunk of a tree, maybe that kind of cell doesn't have a chloroplast in it because it doesn't have that sort of green pigment to it. Next we have is vacuoles. Now you have to forgive me, my pen kind of ran out of ink, so it fades as we go down the page. But let's read. So vacuoles, the organelle used to store water, nutrients, and wastes. I think that's very helpful for a plant cell, especially if you have to make your own food and store it somewhere. So they have a very large vacuole. And that means that there's a lot of room to store those nutrients that it's been building throughout the day. And then when it's nighttime and there's no more sun, it can then go into respiration mode, where it basically consumes that food and turns it into energy because the sun is now gone and it can't get energy from that. The vacuole tends to also help maintain the rigidity of the cell. So it can take in some more water to maintain its volume, its shape. And the vacuole tends to be found mainly in plant cells. So I think, especially a very large one is a defining feature of a plant cell. And last, we've got mitochondria. These are small organelles that convert sugars into ATP. ATP is a molecule, and that molecules just happen to be you can think of it as like a kind of currency, a thing that the cell can use as energy to actually get stuff done. So its job is to take sugars and convert that into energy. So I would believe that animal cells would have these, plant cells would have these too. I just haven't drawn them in because what's the point of making all the food if you'll never use it? So chloroplast makes the food. That food gets turned into ATP by the mitochondria, and then the cell can use that ATP. I will have to cut the video here. I will try and find some information about this little light blue region of the cell here, the endoplasmic reticulum. And there's another feature here, the Golgi body, or the Golgi, what's it called? Sorry, you have to forgive me, but I'll come back with that when I've got some more information at a later date. But for now, that's a lot of the basic organelles of cells, and I hope you can sort of see these in prominence or abundance in certain cells to help them achieve a certain job, and maybe less so in other cells because they're not needed for that cell's job. Until then, I'll see you later.